So, if you've been keeping up with the alleged controversies with Amazon, Tolkien fans have sort of split on the casting and the alleged violations of the books and J.R. Tolkien and what he wanted with this new adaptation. So, we're going to focus on just one small little piece, which is creating a lot of, I think, needless controversy because once you know more and more about the books and the canon, there really isn't much here to be controversial about. So essentially, what is the problem? Well, a lot of things revealed in the teaser trailer for Rings of Power got people excited, and this is sort of mixed with other issues, but they were showing some characters who were darker skinned, and one of them was a dwarf, but a woman, and immediately many people pointed out this had to be a violation of the canon because all dwarves, period, have to have beards, and this is not necessarily true. There's a lot of problems here from the get-go. But why do people think this? Well, essentially, this is all Gimli. Gimli says, basically, that male and female dwarves are indistinguishable, therefore, males have beards, the women should have. And the way that the movies have presented this sort of reinforced this image and stereotype. But in the book itself, it's a little bit ambiguous. It's basically Gimli claiming this. The narrator's not saying this. J.R. Tolkien is not saying this. Gimli is saying this. Now, in some canonical works, he does say this. He does say that, yes, male and female dwarves have beards. However, in one of the later writings, J.R. Tolkien clarified and said he didn't mean to go that far. He actually was more restrictive. He thought male dwarves, yes, they have beards, but he left the matter a little bit unclear with women and female dwarves. So the idea that a female dwarf has to have a beard is basically something that the fans made up, but in the books is a little bit more questionable. So a lot of issues are coming into play, and I'm deliberately trying to avoid the alleged issue, which is, again, skin color, which even if people don't care about the beards, think there's something wrong here with some of the characters being not white, but that's a whole separate topic. But in terms of the dwarves, again, it's just ambiguous. We can just embrace the ambiguity and say, okay, well, it's not entirely clear. We don't know if this is a canonical violation. That's all there is to it. We don't know for sure either way. And that's it. We're just done. Depending on what you think is very canonical, you can say it's a canonical violation or not. So if you just stick to Lord of the Rings, it is a violation. If you read more of Tolkien, it's not a violation. Or it's a question mark. I guess the question is, why is this upsetting so many people? And it seems some part of the fandom wants to show and not be accused of certain things, and therefore are trying to come up with, quote, a not racial issue and show definitively something is wrong with the adaptation, and they're not appealing to, quote unquote, racial appeals. Which is fine, but studying the book seriously and J.R. Tolkien seriously, I don't see the motivation, frankly. If you think this is a violation of the canon, okay, that's fine. That doesn't necessarily mean X or Y is disrespectful to Tolkien, because the canon is sometimes ambiguous. We'd have to point to something that is really not ambiguous and a radical violation of the canon. Then you can say, okay, they're doing something that's damaging the work. But so far, nothing really has occurred that is radically out of place with his writings. A lot of fans really feel this. The original trilogy with Peter Jackson, that's somehow faithful, and if you depart from that, something has gone wrong. But again, we're going in a circle. Were those movies really faithful to the books? Did Peter Jackson really understand J.R. Tolkien? Did he authorize those films? No. So it seems like just fans are very passionate. Once they have these myths, they want to believe these myths. They want others to believe these myths. That's all understandable. But just looking at the books carefully, there's really no controversy here. This is just a non-controversy. And if you study the books carefully, you'd know it's a non-controversy. But again, some fans really want to believe by somehow opposing Amazon, they're honoring J.R.R. Tolkien. And I guess they can feel that way. But honestly, if you want to honor J.R.R. Tolkien, it's always really simple. Just read the books carefully and with attention, and try to be fair and honest in your criticisms. Otherwise, it's really not involving J.R. Tolkien. This is sort of a split within fandom, but what this has to do with the actual books is a little questionable.